And then if I need to just adjust, like try to weigh, if you have about 2 pounds chicken breast range, they can be 8 ounces up to like even more than two pounds per. They're pretty huge these days. So just kind of make sure you have about the right size. Once they're done, you can check them. You know, they should still stay nice and tender, but let them cool, and then you can just chop them up. So I did all of that in advance, and this is what it should look like. So this is nice, perfectly poached chicken. It's still nice and tender, but I was able to let that cool. It's nice and chilled now, which is perfect for our chicken salad. It's in nice little cubes. You could also make it even smaller. You could shred it. I like it in chunks. So we're going to start with that. And this is actually a little bit more than 2 chicken breasts, just because we have a slightly larger class. So I might need to adjust our quantities from the recipe just so that our seasoning comes out correct. But we're going to start with the basics. So we've got our chicken here. And then to that, we're going to add some chopped celery and some onion. So I will start with our celery, and I think it's about a cup, yes. So we were talking a little bit about celery and what you can do with, like, you buy the celery, you can buy it like this already, you know, cut, or you can buy the whole thing and then just clean it and prep it yourself. Either way is fine. If you buy it like this, it's going to be a little bit more, right? But if it saves you time and you like that, go for it. Sometimes you have the sort of the more tender inside, and then you've got the little leaves. I always use the leaves for salads. It's, you know, it's a green, so keep it. Or if you have the ends that I trimmed off already, you can put that in a stock and make your own stock. So waste not, want not, right? So what I'm going to do with this is you could either just kind of dice it. This is kind of big, so I may just cut this down the middle like so. Move some of this stuff out of the way so you all can see. Okay, so it's kind of big, so I'm going to cut it in half, and then I'll just chop it all together. I have small hands, but I mean, this is a good enough amount that I can still cut all of this together. Sometimes people just do one at a time, and they're like, "Why is it taking me so long, Raquel?" Well, the trick is to just, you know, maximize your time. But I like kind of bigger, chunkier things. The texture also is great, right? So I'll do about a cup of this. So this was 2 nice sized stalks cut in half, and then we're going to do this quick chop here on this. And celery just smells great. I mean, it's good for you. It's another great way to get hydration in your system, right? Just make sure. That's about a little over a cup, I would say, which is okay because we have a little over 1 3/4 pounds chicken. I might do another one just because I love celery. So in goes our celery. Now let's do this little guy here. Great color, great texture. So we're just building on all of the different ingredients that we're going to have, but it's all going to come together and taste delicious. Okay, so celery. The other thing is red onion. Now, since there's not a lot in here, I think it's half a cup of red onion. I mean, I love red onion. I use it in a lot of stuff. I especially love it in cold salads like this. It has a great flavor. But if you didn't want to buy a whole red onion and it's just a little bit, you could also do shallots. So that's another tip. So cut top off. Cut this guy in half. And then I'm gonna peel this. Okay. And same technique I do all the time. I'm just gonna make a few slices one way and then go along the natural ridges of the onion and cut it the other way. I like when I use red onion to kind of mince it a little bit smaller. Red onion's pretty strong. So I've had salads like, there's a classic spinach bacon salad that's always served warm, and it has red onion, but it always has such big chunks. Or it has nice shallots. I prefer it with shallots, but if it has big chunks of red onion, I prefer that they be cooked because it's a little strong for me. But who's a fan here of red onions versus regular onions?
I am.
Yeah, yeah. Do you like them raw, or I mean, you see them a lot of times pickled too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So just cutting this a little bit smaller. And yeah, shallots you can find pretty easily at the grocery store these days. If you can also find something called cipollini onions. Have you all seen those? They have such a cute little shape. They're kind of like a small, flatter version of onions. You might see them at farmers markets, specialty food stores, but they're delicious too. And what I like to do with those is you could use them in salads like this, but you can also roast them because they take on such a really nice like caramelization, sweet taste. And so if you're making like a beef stew or something, they go really well with that. Or if you're roasting a chicken, you can throw a couple of those in. I'm gonna throw all of this. This is probably a little more than half a cup, but then again, like I said, we've got a little extra chicken in there today. Okay, so we've got our onion, set that aside here. And then what else are we adding? Okay, so this was my least favorite thing to do, but it is so worth it. So we have 2 fresh herbs. Now you could use dry if you wanted to, but I really do think this salad benefits from fresh herbs. So we have thyme and we have oregano. And I was just saying before we started, this recipe originally I made with fresh marjoram, which if you can find it, I would recommend giving it a try with that. Marjoram is one of those things that you don't often see fresh, but if you can find it, it has a wonderful taste. It's kind of similar to oregano, but almost even more fragrant. So I used that, but today we're using oregano. This is thyme, and I have a complaint. This is not my favorite thyme because it's like this giant hairball of just like difficult to peel the leaves off of, and I mean, I have patience, but I was pretty tired last night, so I did some of that in advance. But what you want is basically about a tablespoon of that. And then the other herb that I used is this nice fresh oregano. So again, we're kind of like, we're bringing out the flavors of the Mediterranean with these nice herbs, and these are just wonderful. If you can also grow these, I used to grow thyme, because you can't kill it. I swear to God, if you've never grown any of your own herbs, thyme is one to start with because it just grows rapidly, kind of like rosemary, and it'll last a long time. But seriously, it's a pretty hardy herb. So we're gonna do about a tablespoon of thyme, and I like to mince it a little bit more. So I'm gonna do that, and then about 2 tablespoons of oregano. Yeah, I should have finished that cup of coffee this morning. And I think I always try to encourage people to use fresh herbs whenever they can, because it just gives a different flavor to your foods. If you're going to use dry, you're going to use probably a little bit less because those flavors are much more concentrated, right, because they're dry. Things like fresh dill, I always end up using a lot more of because it takes a little while for that flavor to come out, but fresh dill is also one of my favorite herbs to cook with. Okay, so in goes our thyme, and then our oregano. It is a little sort of zen to, have a moment to pick the little leaves off of those stems. Turn on some music. Pour yourself a glass of wine. It'll go a lot faster, or slower, depending on how many glasses of wine you've had. But that is also the joy of cooking, right? Is to enjoy it, take your time, cook with somebody you love. It's all good. Okay. Yeah, so this oregano has a nice smell. It's a little bit stronger. And if you've not tasted fresh oregano, try a little, see if you like it, and then adjust as necessary. Okay, so we've got our herbs in there. The other thing I'm going to add, our final herb, is some Italian parsley. And we were talking about the kinds of parsley. You could use the curly parsley as well. This is one of my favorites. What did I say, a 1/4 cup? So I'm going to just use my knife, eyeball it here. And I don't like these bigger stems, so I just kind of pop those off and use the leaves. But some of these smaller ones are okay. You could also use these in your like scrap bag for stock later. It's good flavor. And I think I've probably shared this many times. Parsley, as much as I love Italian parsley and using fresh parsley in a lot of recipes, it is my least favorite thing to cut on the cutting board because it takes forever to wipe it off and it ends up everywhere. So if there is an inventor out there who can make life easier, I'm still waiting. And just like any other fresh herb, I kind of just roll it into a ball and then chop it. Do kind of a rough chop on it and then just start cutting it until I get it to the size that I want it, which will take a few minutes here. I remember when I was cooking in restaurants, we had to do large bunches of this for whatever, we're making dressings and whatnot. And I would watch people when I was first learning, and they would just knock down bunches of fresh Italian parsley like in seconds with their giant sharp knives. And I was always so impressed. I was like, wow, how did they do that? And they're like through a whole box, like a case of, 24 bunches of fresh parsley. That's a lot of fun. I never got that fast. But I moved on to cook many other fun things. But it's always fun to see technique. And now, like, you see on TikTok and all these Instagram reels, like, people doing that, and it's almost, what do they call it, ASMR? It's, like, very relaxing to watch people doing that kind of cooking or prepping. Was I telling you all, there's one that I love to watch. It's this guy who has a fruit stand, and he has the best knife technique, but just like listening to him cut and peel like cantaloupes and mangoes, like he does it so fast, and his display of all the fruits in his little like fruit cart is beautiful. And it always leaves me wanting to go to like a local fruit stand. And I did that one time and I was so disappointed because they already had everything chopped in containers. I was like, that's not it. So this is a pretty good size. It's pretty well minced. That didn't take too long. Okay, so we add that in. So just take a quick peek. I mean, we've got these beautiful greens, purples. It's adding some color. The celery is gorgeous. So we're gonna just clean this up a little bit. Side. Okay, so we've got all of our herbs in there. The next thing we're gonna do is our olives. Now you could use any kind of olives you wanted to, but I stuck with kind of our theme and went with Kalamatas. Thank God I can open that jar today. All right, so what other types of olives would you all try if not Kalamatas?
None of them.
None of them. Okay, you could also leave them out.
Stuffed olives. Like cheese.
Ooh, now that would be delicious in here. Yeah.
So clearly you don't like martinis.
No. I do
So-
like martinis, but everyone's tired like with the twist. There's always a way.
So I'm not a fan of Kalamata olives, I was saying to somebody earlier, but in this recipe they work well. And it's the brininess, it's something about Kalamata, maybe the color too for me is a little weird. I think they're stronger than, my favorite olive is called a Castrovilano, I think that's how you say that. And it's a delicious, almost meaty kind of green olive. And you can find it with the pit or without. I always love to get it with the pit. But those are some of the best olives I've ever had. But if you don't like olives, you could leave them out. This is about half a cup, a little bit more. You have to try it with the olives because I'm telling you, it's a whole vibe, as the kids say. It's a vibe.
It gives it some flavor. It gives it flavor.
It gives it flavor, yeah.
I know I love pizzas.
Yeah, and so one of the things, remember last week when we were looking at the nutrition info on the egg bite recipe? So there are different ingredients that are affecting that, right? In here, there is not a lot of salt that I'm using, but that's also why I cut the mayonnaise, because there is some sodium in there and we have the sodium from the olives. So consider that as you're, making your adjustments. The other thing we're gonna add is some Dijon mustard. You could use whatever favorite brand that you have. This is just a HEB plain old Dijon, and we're gonna do about a tablespoon, I believe. Yes, okay. Let's see. I always give it a good shake so it's not all drippy and watery. Could you use regular mustard? Probably not. I would not recommend it for this one. We'd just give it a different. Let's save that for the potato salad, right? We're gonna do half a cup of light mayonnaise. Or like I said, if you wanted to skip the mayonnaise, maybe you're not a fan of that, you could also just do all the yogurt. So do, do equal parts of the yogurt. So in goes half a cup of yogurt. Or, sorry, it would be 3/4 cup, right? That's what I'm doing. Sorry, y'all. I should have had that coffee this morning. Okay, so in goes our mayo. I used to make my own mayo, but then I got busy. It's not that tricky to make, but you have to use it, once you make it, it's not.
It's just like eggs and
Oil.
And oil, yeah. It's pretty good. I went to Spain for the first time many years ago, and it was great. I took a couple cooking classes, and there was a nice, handsome Spaniard man who taught me how to make mayonnaise, and I was like, "This is incredible!" And I still have the recipe, and it was delicious. But I did it for a long time. I was like, "Cool, I can make my own mayonnaise," and I was like, "Yeah, but now I can also buy it." so sometimes when we talk about meal planning and time saving and like all of that, like do what's best for your time and your sanity. And that was one of the things. I'm like, I don't go through a lot of mayonnaise, so I'll just buy the little jar. So that was half a cup of that. Excuse me. And then we're going to do a 1/4 cup of the yogurt. Oops. And this is just plain Greek yogurt. One time I was testing recipes for work, and I was like, this is a great recipe, but it was a savory one. It was like a tomato sandwich, and the spread was supposed to have yogurt, plain yogurt. And I was in a hurry when I was buying the groceries. I didn't realize it and the container was turned like this, so I couldn't see the front of it. And I mixed everything. I was like, this looks great. And then I tried it, and I was like, that's weird. It tastes kind of sweet. Turned around the container, and it said vanilla. Or honey, I think is what it says. I was like, that could kind of work, but not in this recipe.
Yeah.
So always take a minute to check your ingredients. Okay, so we have the yogurt, and then we're just going to add some salt and pepper and call it a day. So salt, we've got half a teaspoon. Just going to clean this so I don't get mustard all over the place. All right, so half a teaspoon of salt. And again, if you need to watch your sodium, you could omit that and just try it without. If you feel like you need more, add more. 1 teaspoon of salt. And then a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. This is fresh ground black pepper. So definitely going to have some great flavor. And I was bragging to a few folks. I went to that cute little town Green, and I always love going into the shops and seeing what I could find. And I found this cool spoon that says, "Don't be a lady, be a legend." And I was like, that is my spoon. That is the spoon for me. So we're just going to give this a mix. And you know what? We're missing one thing, ladies. What is it? See if you can find it in the recipe. Because I just realized there's one thing that's also going to really bring this to life here. Found it yet?
lemons.
No, lemons. So you buy 2 lemons because one's going to go in the poaching liquid and the other one you're going to use to zest and put in the salad. And that's also, when you let this chill, just even for like an hour, that's when you take a bite of this for the first time, all of those flavors come through. The fresh herbs, the olives, and that lemon is like, wow, really pops. So looks pretty good. You can add a little more yogurt or mayo. But I'm gonna add this and we'll give it a little try and see if it needs to be adjusted. But I think you all are gonna love this recipe. So anything that you see here that you would do differently?
No,
Add or subtract?
I would take up the
Olives.
Olives. Okay, we'll start there. No olives. Sans olive.
I might try, I'd probably look at the ingredients of the Hellmann's, like mayonnaise, and, I like veganaise.
Yeah, that's also very good too.
But I know veganaise has a little bit more sodium.
Yes.
Veganaise.
It's like a vegan mayonnaise. Yeah,
there's
those
different
are
kinds.
the
Vegan.
consistency of those are really good. The emulsification is fantastic, but you're right. If you look at a lot of those kind of substitute or alternative ingredient kind of foods, watch the sodium because there's tons because they have to make up for the ingredients that are missing, right? The flavor that those ingredients usually provide. So,
What about adding like an artichoke or something?
yeah, I was saying originally this recipe had artichoke hearts in it,
Oh.
those marinated artichoke hearts. I'm just gonna add a little more lemon, just to give you sort of what you would be tasting if this was chilled. But the chicken is chilled because I had it in the refrigerator overnight after I finished poaching it. And this was the microplane zester we had on our equipment list. I also have one that's like super small. It's like half the size of this. That's also fun if you can find those. Okay, so I think this could probably use a little more since I added a little. I'm gonna add a little more yogurt to make it a little creamier. A little more yogurt, maybe a little more mayo. And then I will let you all be the judges or jury of what you think. Well, I'm gonna have my lovely assistant Rosie
Yes.
help me out here by scooping this, but I'm gonna have her give me a fork first so I can just try it to make sure there isn't anything else that I need to add. But when it comes together, it looks a little something like this, right? We've got these nice big chunks of chicken.
Nice.
It's the beautiful colors.
With it.
Yeah,
I love
there you go. It smells very.
Rosie in the back.
I know, I'm good.
I'm giving you over time.
I'm just gonna taste it, make sure.
What I
it's
do
got salt.
no.
Since I adjusted my quantities, I'm sure it'll be delicious. But thank you.
Oh, nice.
You gotta get a little of everything in there. Sounds good. Okay, take it away, Rosie. All right. Well, while my lovely assistant Rosie is doing that, tidy up here a little bit, and we're gonna move on to. Well, actually, any questions on any of that before I move us on? Okay. It's a pretty easy recipe. Nutritionally, this makes about. Well, this is a little bit larger because I added more chicken, but it makes about 4 cups. So, one of the things I was going to say is I love this just as is with some crackers, which I apologize, I had some for you, but I forgot those today. With crackers, just like that, or I'll do like some shredded romaine, put a ball of this on top, add some, chopped up wedges of tomato, maybe sprinkle on some roasted sunflower seeds, a little dressing of some kind, like simple Italian dressing. And then you have a salad, you make this an extra salad. You could also do it in a wrap, because sometimes you need variety, right? You're like, okay, this is good, but I want it more substantial. So there's all different flavors of like those wrap tortillas. They have the spinach ones, they have the bell pepper ones. If you can find something called lavash bread, that's also a nice thing to use for wraps, or pita bread. Stuff this in pita bread. Throw some additional chopped up shredded cabbage, kale, something just to kind of bulk it up, give yourself some more fiber, some more vegetables, right? So think about this as kind of a starting place, and then you can add on to it. So it could be something that's great for lunch, or this could be a nice light, like summer meal for dinner.
As far as the nutrition we have on there, it says approximately 401 of the calories. Is that for the entire?
That's for the
bowl?
entire. Yeah, that's for the. Well, actually, hold on a second.
That's per cup.
Oh, that's per cup. Yes,
Or
because it's done by serving.
Yeah, see,
Yeah.
it says one small cup.
So it's
You
pretty
understand?
substantial because of the yogurt and then
Makes
the
one cup.
mayo.
Oh,
Yeah,
makes one cups.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
it's for 1 cup.
this is
It's
for 1
serving.
cup. That does
Okay.
seem high though for
Oh,
1
yeah,
cup.
for sure.
I'll double check that because that does seem a little high. It should
Yeah.
probably be like 2. But one thing I did want to point out. So this is from a program that I use. It's an app called Samsung Food, which is usually pretty good, but I also always kind of take it with a grain of salt because there are some things that are a little off. They get as close to possible based on how you input your ingredients in the recipe. But I've noticed things like, especially when it comes to the fiber, like I'll have recipes that are all purely vegetable and it's like fiber, 2 grams. I'm like, wait a minute, how could that be? So I kind of use this as kind of a guideline, but thank you for pointing that out. I'm going to double check that because that seems a little,
I like that protein amount.
but the protein,
Yeah.
yeah.
Protein,
protein's great.
I'm always looking at
Yeah.
protein.
And carb, sugars, yeah, all of that looks pretty good, but that does seem a little high. For 4 cups? Okay. So what's for dinner? That is the quintessential question, right? Like, even if you're great at thinking in advance and planning, like, who here has done that for many years for themselves or for their families, just like always having at least something prepared in advance so that you don't have to rush to the store that day? A couple of you, okay. And kind of, how did that start for you? Like, why did you decide to do that? What made
To
you?
make life easier, especially when you have a family. So
Yeah.
I typically try to like cook something on Sundays that I can have like leftovers for a couple of nights.
Mm-hmm.
And especially if you're working and stuff like that, it just makes it easier. So it's kind of here to go.
Yeah, what are do you have kind of like your family favorites that are standards?
Yeah.
And do you want to share like what's one?
I love spaghetti. And
Yeah.
like,
That's a
the
good
longer the sauce sets, the better it tastes anyway. So something like that.
Yeah, that's an important thing to think about when you're deciding like where do you even start with the recipes. I think something that like this where the flavors kind of develop because you're going to be making it a couple days in advance, right? And hoping that that flavor will be just as exciting the first day you try it versus when you try it 3 days later. Some people I know, including myself, can only eat things like a couple days and then I'm done with this. So it's like finding the balance of that, like what's gonna make your taste buds happy, but also nutritionally what's gonna be feeling substantial when you like, oh, I just need to pop this in the microwave or put this on the stove for a few minutes, reheat it, and it's good. So think about that. I heard grapes. Yes. Every time I make this salad, I think about adding grapes. Red grapes or green would be delicious. Yeah.
I would definitely make this.
It's a good one.
This
Yeah.
is
I would
excellent.
definitely make this.
It's a good one. And it's like all of the combinations of those flavors coming together. And when you have a chance to let it chill, I guarantee you, ladies, when you try it, you're like, oh my God, this is so good. Okay, well, today I wanted to talk about like, how do we come up with ideas? So one of them, very simply, is what are your go-tos like for your family that you've cooked for many years already and they're like easy to shop for, easy to find the ingredients, and easy to make. So start with that, right? Like that's an easy place to go to. What are your go-tos, the standard hits, right, that your family has come to know and love? They might also be like these recipes that are considered heirlooms in your family. They've been passed down over the generations. Maybe they've been tweaked a little bit because you're like, oh, my Dia so-and-so used to put this in it, but I can't find that anymore, so now I add this. Like, think about those recipes because some of those are some of the best. Whenever I go shopping or I go to like a thrift store, I look at the recipe, if there's like book sections, if there's cookbooks, because often I'll find like these old cookbooks, but there's a lot of those like simple classic recipes that most families probably have made in some form or fashion. Those are some really good basic recipes to have on hand. Excuse me. Cookbooks. So, I know everything is kind of online these days, but
I still like it.
yes, I don't know anybody who does not love to have the feel of, the look of. I have whole book racks at home of cookbooks. You can't go wrong with the classics, and so cookbooks are still king when it comes to honing your skills in the kitchen and getting inspiration. If you don't want to commit to buying some, because some are pretty spendy, right? Go to your library. Chances are you can check it out there. Also look for a couple of these books that I recommend. One I think I've mentioned in the past is called Salt, Fat, Acid, and Heat by Celine Nosrat. I always feel like I'm mispronouncing her last name, but she is a wonderful chef, had for a short time a documentary on Netflix based on this book. But if you're kind of a beginner in the kitchen and you're like, I just want some basic recipes that will show me how to like make something and make it really well, that's a great book. Plus she just gives you like all of the main concepts of like, these are the things that are essential to recipes to make them taste like something. Because there's always times when you make something and you're like, I just added everything, but I don't know what I did and it doesn't taste like anything. Like, these are the components. Is it missing salt? Where's the fat in this? Where's acidity? Like, things are always missing, and that's why people say something's off, because one of these elements is not in that recipe. Mark Bittman, he's great. He's been around forever, and he has his series of cookbooks called How to Cook Everything. Those are also great resources. Michael Ruhlman, he is one who's been around also forever. He's an author, a journalist who's worked with some very famous chefs and just has done some wonderful books. Ratio and Ruhlman's 20 are some of the top cookbooks that he has. Ratio is a good one. I don't particularly have it, but now I want it. It's like fundamental for people who are learning how to cook and who have a little bit of experience, because it tells you, like, you know how you say, when I'm making brown rice, how do I cook that? Like the ratio is 2 to 1, like 2 parts water, 1 part rice. Like, he gives you that so that in any kind of cooking, when you're, especially with meal prepping, if you need to scale up a recipe, you could do the math and like say, I'm just going to double this and double everything, but sometimes that doesn't work. And ratios is a much better way to scale recipes across the board, because that way it'll come out consistently. Also, sometimes some ingredients vary, right, by size, by weight, whatever. So ratio is kind of one of those more like intuitive ways of cooking, and it's a great thing for people who have some level or knowledge of skill in the kitchen, but then want kind of to go the next bump up. Another of my favorites is Kenji Lopez Alt. He is awesome. His book, The Food Lab, also has amazing information on techniques for pretty much every single food you can imagine. So definitely check those out at your local bookstore or find them online. And then here's one that people forget about, but I always go back to. Inspiration by ingredient. So have you all ever purchased something, a package at the store, and on the back there's a recipe using that ingredient?
Yes.
There are people who have developed those recipes because they work for those companies and they're like, we got to sell this product, right? Half the time people don't know what to do with something, so you need a recipe so people can buy the product and know how to use it. So look at the back of packages. Some of my favorite baking recipes have come from the back of packages like sugar or flour. I have an incredible recipe for cornbread, and it's on the back of like, it's Safeway. We don't have those grocery stores here, but it was a Safeway brand of cornmeal. And that recipe comes out fantastic every time because it's their product. But I found the recipe there. So don't forget about those. And then also look online. So think about like the commissions, the dairy commission, the beef commission, all the fruit commissions. They have people, like I did that for a while in Washington State for the potato commission, developing recipes for their ingredients, their product. And it's specifically for that product. So those recipes are fantastic, and you'll find them on their websites. So people often forget about that, but definitely if you're like, I just have not, like I get overwhelmed when I go online, there's so many blogs and recipe resources, and some of them are terrible, quite frankly. Like they're just, people are kind of trying to get the hits and they've got like the great pictures, but then recipes are terrible and you can tell just by reading through them like this isn't gonna work.
Right.
I've seen that a lot lately on social media where the picture is so enticing because, you know, AI does a wonderful job. And you're like looking at the recipe going like, well, that ingredient's not even listed here. And this looks like it's way too much liquid for that amount of dry ingredients. So like, think about that too, before you even invest the dollars and the time, like look through the recipe, make sure it seems reasonable before you make it. Do you guys have any other ways that you like to get recipe ideas, inspiration for trying something new?
Pinterest.
Pinterest, yes.
My favorite.
Pinterest is a good one. I used to do Pinterest for many years, and I was kind of surprised on it. It's still a thing. Like people
Still a
still
thing.
have
I mean,
their
cause keto, if you're doing keto, you go right to it,
everything.
right there.
Yeah, and how are the recipes as far as reliability, and they turn out pretty good? Okay, Pinterest. Anything else? Or do you guys have like your standards that you tend to cook and you're like, this is the one I can't stop cooking because my family will not love me if I don't make this anymore? Spaghetti was one we talked about.
A meatloaf also, and I think there was one, and I don't remember if it was off of an onion soup mix that it came out of.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, that's
And I really have, I mean, you know, when you were little, you would read like, oh, okay, what's in the back of this one? And
Yeah.
I don't really pay attention that much, but I want to start doing that now because
yeah.
there was a lot of recipes, you know, especially, you know, even like you say, you know, cornmeal or even panko, you know.
Yeah.
We found some recipes. Like
Yeah, I think sometimes we overlook it because we're just like in a hurry and we're like, I just need this ingredient. But there are people behind those products that want to make sure that people buy the product and make sure that they know what to do with it. And so they come up with some pretty good recipes. I found a lot like I think it was either Pillsbury one time I was looking for something. I was like, oh, they have some really good recipes on their
Pillsbury
site.
does have some good ones
Yeah.
too. You can go on, you know, on their little website.
Yep. And I'm sure like with apps and all of that, they probably have something where you could, if you're at the store and you're like, oh yeah, I need to do something with this, just look it up on your phone now these days too. So lots of great ideas there. And speaking of online, so I was trying to figure out, you know, if you wanted to get into this idea of meal prepping, it does take a little bit of organizing yourself up front, right? To get into the habit, get into the routine, and get yourself prepared to kind of be in that mindset of doing this regularly. But one of the great sites that's been around forever and has some useful resources is this Budget Bites. They have wonderful content. Much of it is free. They have a subscription meal plan service, which is like, I think you can get it monthly or annually. And I think annually it's maybe $50 a year. But it will provide you with like regular recipes and then like the shopping stuff. Take a look at their site if you've not visited them. They do a really beautiful job with content. Like a lot of times you go to these sites and there's all these pop-up ads and there's like, it's so distracting and overwhelming. This one has beautiful pictures, it has great layout and just nicely well laid out content, even if you just want to use them for recipes, because I believe you can save the recipes, you can email it to yourself, and all of that for free. And they have over 1,700 budget-friendly recipes, so that's a pretty good catalog of recipes. And then the other thing that I like about them is they have something called recipe roundups. So that's where like 50 classic breakfast ideas, and it's all breakfast recipes. Like those are good too in a pinch when you're like, gosh, I'm having friends over for brunch. I have no idea what I'm gonna make. Kind of like Pinterest, like it has all these cataloged by subject or by entree roundups. So check them out. Yeah, so subscription for a year is $50 and then monthly $5. So you get like a discount for a year, about $10, right? The other app that not a lot of people know about, but when I was working in my last job, I came across and I was like, more people need to know about this because it's really cool. And apps are tricky, right? They're glitchy. Sometimes if you're not tech savvy, you're like, I'm not going to use this thing. This one is really cool because one, it's free, and we all like free. It's from the folks at USDA MyPlate. So what it has is it's very intuitive. It has budget-friendly recipes, and you can search it by ingredients. And as you go down the ingredient, it'll tell you tips for how to use it, the nutrition information, serving ideas, just really nicely laid out. And then also, if you need this information, it'll tell you where there are retailers like your grocery stores or farmers markets as well that accept SNAP and EBT and do like extra incentive programs. So if you've heard of things like Double Up Bucks programs where you purchase a certain amount of produce at a farmer's market, but then you get an additional amount towards the cost of your total cost. It'll tell you where those are too. So you can click on this QR code, put this on your phone. This will help, you find some recipes, but also get some good nutrition info. And just give you a great additional resource for compiling your recipes because you can save them in this app too. So those are 2 resources. And then the last one that I found out about, I did not have space to put on here, is it's called Resime. Resime, like Recipe Me, but it's called Resime, and it's an app, and it's a free app, and then they of course have their paid subscription plan. But that one is great too because it's not only a place where you can find recipes, but you can basically make your own recipe box and save them all. It'll make your grocery lists. It will allow you to even scan like cookbook recipes into it. It's basically a place to save all your recipes. And it reminds me, like years ago, I'm aging myself, but maybe like 2 decades ago, when all of this digital stuff started to really ramp up, as I was in my early days of culinary, creativity, there were places that were starting to create an idea for people who wanted to have just like, where do you put all your recipes, right? Especially since things were going digital. And there were so many cool ones out there, and I can't remember now the name of the one that I originally used, but it reminds me of this recipe one because it had like something that was very intuitive for somebody who cooks a lot. Like sometimes you just need a place to store all of that stuff. And if you do go online to find recipes, you're like, oh, I'm going to bookmark this one. And then by the time you try to go back and find it, you're like, where did I put that? Like, or you print it out, right? Like that. And then you end up with the paper version anyways. So check those things out, play with them. You might go down a rabbit hole and find other recommendations while you're on their sites. But that's good too, because that's how we learn about these cool resources that are out there that people have invested a lot of time. Budget Bites really has been around forever. And they've done a wonderful job just evolving their site. And I, for one, like if I'm going to use a digital resource, I don't want to be bombarded with like lots of ads and like having a hard time getting to what I need. I love those things where it says jump to the recipe because I love a good story. I used to do blogging very much too, and if I have time, I'll read it because people put time into that. But sometimes I just need to get to the recipe. So. Because I want to, again, like make sure, is this recipe for me going to work out? Like, does it seem reasonable? Are all the ingredients listed there? Are the quantities about right? Those are things to look for. So those are my recommendations for recipe resources because sometimes we just have to start there, right? Like people ask you, what are you going to make? I'm like, oh, I don't know. And even I, like, have been doing this for years, have trouble sometimes. I'm like, I'm so tired of the same things.
Right.
And so I go to my bookshelves and I look at all my cookbooks and some that I have not even cooked from yet because there's just like ingredients I can't find here all the time. And I'm like, oh, I'd love to make that, but I'm going to have to order that first because I can't find it here. But yeah, are there any other like sites that you all visit or aside from Pinterest, as you mentioned?
I don't visit like sites, but I do something kind of unconventional. Sometimes if I'm watching a movie and I see that they're cooking something, I try to either pay really close attention or there's some cookbooks or sites that they actually make the food from those movies. Like especially there's these anime studios called Studio Ghibli. So they actually made a cookbook from the food that is presented on those movies.
Oh, that's a really cool idea.
So, once I started doing that, I saw that. I'm like, I might do that.
That's a good idea. My mother, for many years, I would find these little slips of paper and they would just have ingredients on them. And I'd be like, what in the world? It was like half a recipe. And then I'd ask her about it. She's like, oh, well, I was watching this cooking show and I started to jot down the recipe. And that's like, you get something. And that's cool because she watches, like on the weekends, there's always all these cooking shows and sometimes we'll watch them together. But if you don't have a quick source to like jump to the website or I'll look it up on my phone like, oh, okay, I'm going to save that for later. She'll start to jot it down. And I think it's great because, later on I'll find these recipes and I'll be like, oh, what was that? Because she doesn't usually put the title all the time. It's just the ingredients. And I'm like, I can kind of tell what it was just by the ingredients. But she'll say, oh, no, I was watching one of our favorites that we used to watch was a guy and the show was called En la Cocina con Jerónimo. And he's a Mexican cook, I believe, a Mexican chef. And he does kind of all healthy, organic, natural cuisine. But we can't find the show anymore. But he's still around. And then we have his cookbook. And she would always like write down all these recipes and be like, we have to try this. And we did a couple and they were great. the cookbook, there's some of those ingredients. I'm like, I don't know if I can find this, but yeah, I mean, I think cooking shows are a great resource. You know who I really love too is the Magnolia lady. She's fantastic. She's kind of quirky like me. I think that's why I love her too. But she has
a restaurant.
I have not been to her restaurant, but her recipes are beautiful, and she cooks them like it's another one of those like this recipe for your family. Some of them are kind of intricate, and I'm like, half the people wouldn't have time to cook this for their family. But some of them are just fantastic, and they're classics, and I'm like, that's a great recipe, and she's just fun to watch. So
Magnolia.
is it Magnolia Kitchen? Is the name of her cooking show? What's her name? Joanna Gaines. Yeah, she's fantastic. And yeah, so if you see something, jot it down. And chances are, like a lot of those PBS cooking shows, they're linked to chefs who have their cookbooks and their own sites, so check those out. One of my other favorites that I didn't put on here is America's Test Kitchen. Those folks are wonderful. One, because like if that could have been my dream job 20 years ago, I would have taken it. Because they're just testing all these different, sometimes classic recipes, but also like world cuisine, and they break it down for you and say, we tried it 20 different ways, and this is the best way that we know to make this. And then they show it, and we're like, wow, my mom's always like, God, they're gonna taste it, and it looks so good. So they have several cookbooks out as well. They have their show, they have their website. Who else do I really love? Oh, so Kenji Lopez Alt, he was the editor of that website, Serious Eats. I think I've mentioned that one before. That's another great one, because if you want to know any recipe and have a good, valid resource for it, that site will usually have it. All those recipes I've ever made from there work really wonderfully well, but some of them might have a little more technique in them. So, but if you're like, you know, I saw this recipe on TV and I'd love to just get an idea for it because I didn't jot it down or whatever, they didn't have a link to it. Check that site, because you can just type in anything, and along with the recipes, they give you like the whole backstory of like the ingredients and like the history of the ingredient. Like it's, if you're that kind of like nerd into cooking, that's a great site. And yeah, those are kind of my top go-tos, but there's so much out there. So this is a good place to start, and I encourage you all to kind of get out there and check things out.
There's an app called Tasty.
Yes, they've been around forever too. Yeah,
Like simple recipes.
Yeah.
They're good, and they also show like a video.
Yep, Tasty's great. They have wonderful videos of just kind of showing you. That's half the battle too, right? Like if you're kind of intimidated, you're like, I want to make this, but I'm not sure if I'm going to get this right. Even I'll do that too. I'll be like, how did they do that? Like, and so I'll watch the video a couple times to be like, oh, that's how they did that part. So yeah, that's helpful.
What I think about, what I like about those videos is that they don't talk.
Mm-hmm.
They just like show you.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes
I agree.
Yeah,
It's the music, and they're like, yeah.
whenever you go to YouTube to look for a video like on how to do something, they talk so much that
Like get to the cooking already.
yeah. Yes, and then like for someone like me, I have yeah, I don't really listen. So and then they get to like I get bored, and then I like forward the video, and then I need something that I have to go back. So at the end, I'm like, I'm not gonna do it.
Yeah, so then you're like on to the next thing. Yeah, they really have to pay attention to that. I agree. It's like the jump to the recipe feature. Right? Like I was so happy when they discovered that feature, because I was like, great, I love all these stories. And I had many friends who were like food bloggers, and I was like, I love the story, but I just want to get to the recipe. And it's like, I gotta read 12 pages of like your grandmother's whatever and your kids, and I'm like, okay, I just need, how'd you make this salad? Okay, great. Yeah, we've come a long way.
My
still-
daughter, I had a lot of cookbooks, you know, and she took them, and she goes, I like these because they have pictures to them. And the ones nowadays was, I want to see what this looks like.
Yeah, that's a good point too. I have a lot of friends. We've cooked for many years, and we're kind of the nerds who are like, cookbooks are stories for us too. Like when it is a cookbook by somebody that I admire, I love it when there's like the story of it too, because I'll read it like a book.
Yeah.
But that's true. If you're just kind of new to cooking, you need the visuals. Like it's helpful to have pictures. However, as I learned over the years too, cookbooks are, any kind of books to publish are expensive, and there's not a lot of like profit in books anymore, but cookbooks, people still want the actual book. And pictures, the more pictures you put in there, the more expensive it is to produce. So that's why sometimes cookbooks don't have a lot of pictures, but they really do need them, because if it's a technique thing, or you just want something like, I'll go through old cookbooks that I find and I'm like, these pictures are terrible. But then I'll look at a recipe and be like, oh, why isn't there a picture for this? Because I kind of want to see now, based on the ingredients, what this is going to look like. I have
I
to
mean,
kind
Betty
of
Crocker
envision.
was pretty good about putting a lot of pictures.
She
in.
was.
Betty Crocker. Now I'm really dating myself.
No, I've got that cookbook. I've got like the classic Betty Crocker. Yeah, there's some
And then also, Bisquick also have a lot of recipes in the back of the box.
They are very good, yes. Yeah, so I hope I've kind of inspired you all to kind of go home this week and see where you can find ideas for recipes. But other than that, any other questions before we wrap up here?
Well, I guess like with it becoming, fall coming up pretty soon, I think that's when we can start really kind of getting back into it, because it's just been too hot to cook.
Yeah. Well, that's true. Like in the different seasons, we change how we change our diets, honestly, and that's the way that we're created as creatures, right? Like we eat a little bit lighter. We're much more active in the summer. We're out and about. The weather is hotter. We're not as hungry. Like we adjust. Our bodies adjust and regulate for that. And you're right. That's also kind of why I chose this topic, because I was like, in the fall, people are going to start getting back to sort of a routine, a more structured routine, and they're going to want to have meals that are easy to prepare. This one, you guys, I mean, this is kind of this is a good one. Try it without the olives, if you like. Thank you for trying it with the olives. But yeah, it's a good one. So, okay, next week we've got a delicious broccoli and potato soup. It's a creamy broccoli and potato soup. And we're talking money. We're talking about food costing, food budgeting. It's a topic that people don't like to think about, but think so crazy expensive. We're gonna spend a little time talking about that. So I hope you guys can join us next week. And I'll see you then.
Thank you.